Are your sales on COMC slowing down significantly? Well, this video is going to share with you a couple of things that I think you could do to improve the frequency of your sales. Let's get into this. So as the sports card market values continue to drop over the past some months, over the past year, or however long it's been, there's a slowdown of sales for a lot of us on COMC, me included. The number of sales I'm getting day to day has gone down a lot. Now, sometimes there's different reasons for this, but I think there are a few concrete steps that are useful for each of us if we're trying to make more sales on COMC. Perhaps the first and most important one is repricing your cards every once in a while. I go through my cards about every month or so and just make sure the prices are still at a good level, because the values of things change. So if you keep the price at one level and you never go and change it, very likely the market, recently at least, the market has gone down and now your price is overpriced, your card is overpriced, and it won't sell. So the first thing to do, very clear thing, go through and reprice your cards to the market level or a little under the market level. In particular, if you can get your card to be the cheapest card on the market on COMC, that'll help you. I mean, of course, if somebody comes through and they're going to buy a card, they're most likely going to buy the cheapest card on the platform. I don't like the penny battle necessarily. I mean, you lower it by 1 cent and then the next guy comes in and lowers it by 1 cent. I don't like that. If the lowest card is $5.50, I don't like going $5.49 and then the next guy goes in and does $5.48 and then you have to go down to $5.47. Maybe I'll go in and just put $5. It's a solid amount less. Personally, for me as a buyer, I don't know if other people are doing this, but if I see, a card for $5, a card for $4.99, a card for $4.98, a card for $4.97, I actually look at the $5 card first because I don't care about 3 cents. And I don't like that people have been doing this penny battle. So I'll oftentimes go, I bet that $5 guy was the first person to post. I'm going to go look at his card first. And if it's nice, I'll actually tend to go to that one just because the penny battle kind of bothers me. Not everybody's going to do that. So if you want to do a penny battle, whatever, do your thing. But I would suggest instead to go down a little bit lower, $4.75 or something like that. So perhaps that's the most important thing of all. If your cards are overpriced, you're not going to sell anything. The other thing to keep in mind, and I guess this is point 2, is be willing to lose money from your original purchase price if necessary. If you think it's a card that really truly has a lot of potential to go back up and you don't want to lose money on it, okay, that's your prerogative, that's your choice. But at the same time, there's certain cards that I think at certain stages it's just better to offload, and you have that money to do something else with. If you have this card, maybe there's an off chance that in the next some period of time the value of it will go back up to where it was so you can make a profit. Maybe that's possible, but it's also very likely that it won't, so you might as well sell it for a little bit of a loss. You have that money that you can do something else with at that time. So I think that's oftentimes a good play. I just went through a phase of time where I have a bunch of cards on my COMC account that have been sitting there for a long time. I haven't had new cards entered into the platform in a while. I have 742 waiting to be entered in the platform, but I haven't had any new ones in quite a while. So most of my cards that are sitting in there have been sitting in there for quite a while. So I'm going through my inventory, categorizing it by the oldest, like the ones that have been in the system, in my store, in my port for the longest amount of time. And the ones that have been there the longest, they're the ones I'm more likely to be more willing to lose more money on. So I'll price them lower to just try to offload them. There's this concept sometimes that people talk about called the sunk cost fallacy. You can't consider how much to sell something with just based on how much you paid for it. You might, if you bought it at the top of the bubble and you're still trying to break even on it, you probably never will. So just think of it as currently you have $0 from it and you want to sell it for what you can get it for, especially if there's something else you're trying to get that you think is a good deal right now. Like for me, for example, my strategy has changed from trying to find good COMC flips to trying to find cards that I can do kind of arbitrage with, international arbitrage, and sell in China. So my strategy has changed to have that focus recently. So sometimes if there's a card that I'll lose a couple bucks on, but I'll be able to use that money to something else that I know I'll make a decent profit on, then it's much more worth it for me to do that. So especially cards that have been sitting there for a really long time, don't be afraid to lose money. The third one is use the sales. I had two different experiences, and I shared in one video how I set it up and what I was doing. And from that, I didn't make a follow-up video from that first sale I had because nothing happened. My sales didn't change. Nothing really changed. But then I did it a second time, and the second time it was much more successful. And the reason it was much more successful the second time was two things. The first one was I repriced my cards first. So I went in and I looked at my prices and I said, okay, some of these are fine price, some of these are too high right now. Let me lower everything down to like what a base level of sales is that's fair for all of my cards. So I did that first, and then I went into the sale. And the second thing I did is I had a starting price. So in my first sale, my starting price, I just did a 10% as the base. Maybe I changed a few individual cards here and there, but generally I had a 10% off sale. That didn't happen, nothing happened much. For my second sale, I actually went in, I put 10% as the standard deduction, but I went in, and especially for some of my higher priced cards or on cards where I had more room for margin, things like that, I would actually put the percentage much higher. There were some cards that were 15% off, some cards that were 20% off. There was a few cards that were even 25% off, just because I was like, okay, this is a great deal for somebody, but I can make a little bit of profit, and this card's been sitting there for a while, so I'm okay with selling it for a lot less than I could, even 25% off. So, I think on average it was probably a 15% off sale overall, and I sold a lot more on that one. So part of it was because I lowered the cost, the initial cost, and then lowered it even more. Now, a number of those cards I sold did lose money from my initial purchase price, but like I said, sunk cost fallacy. Don't worry about it. If you lose some money on these cards, but now you have some money to do something else with, it's okay. Can't expect 100% profit. Now, another thing you could consider, now this didn't work for me, but if you're really having a tough time getting rid of some of your stuff and you just want to sell it and you don't care how much anymore, a port sale is a good option. You have to be, you're probably going to lose money on the port sale, and you probably only want to do that if there's a bunch of stuff that's been sitting there for a long time and you just don't want to hassle with it anymore. Because the port sales generally, I think my impression is the sales price will be a fraction of their value. Most people who are buying ports are doing it for arbitrage purposes. They're trying to buy up a huge lot of stuff so that they can resell it for a higher price. So you're not necessarily going to be making any money, but if there's a bunch of stuff you just want to offload, you can look into a port sale. I did make a video on my experience trying that, but I didn't get even a single offer, even though my prices were quite a bit below what the eBay comps would be. I didn't even get a single offer. It's because I think I was at least trying to sell close to eBay. I was under eBay comps for sure, but I wasn't like 50% under eBay comps. I was like 90% of eBay comps, and I didn't even get a single offer. So I think, the port, it has a specific purpose. If you're really just trying to offload stuff for a fraction, 50% or less of the eBay comps. Another thing, there's some cards that I'm not rushing to offload, even though they're not doing so well, just because I'm expecting, I don't know for sure if this will happen, but I'm expecting that someday COMC will rerun the thing they ran last December, the no minimum fee auctions. Last December, January, when they ran that was really an important time for me because it allowed me to offload some of that older inventory that wasn't selling so well, because you put it up for an auction. Usually you wouldn't do that unless the card is worth at least $50, but probably more than that, more like $100, just because of the minimum charge they have of $3.50, no matter how much it sells for. If you sell a card for auction for $10 on an auction and they're charging $3.50 for the minimum auction fee, then that's 35% of what you sold it for. That's too high. Of course, you're not going to want to sell a card like that. But when they have their no minimum fee special event, then it's great. You sell a $10 card, they take their whatever percentage it was. I don't remember, 5%, 10%, whatever it was, which is perfectly fine. They take $1, they take 75 cents, but then you can offload some of that older inventory. So a lot of the stuff that I have that I'm just, I'm kind of waiting for that event. I'm like, this thing is never going to sell. I just want to auction it off, but it's a $10 card, so I can't auction it off right now and expect anything from it. So I'm kind of just waiting for that event. I think they'll have one. Last year it was so successful that they extended it from a 1-month thing to a 2-month thing. So I'm assuming that means that they're going to be bringing it back. And I kind of am working on the assumption that they will, because, really when that time comes around, be ready for it, because that presents a lot of opportunities right there. There's other cards on COMC that sometimes are not great flipping opportunities on the platform, but there are people out there who would bid for it. You know, last year there was a number of like lower end, like even like Marvel cards and different things like that I was able to buy for $1 and flip and sell for $7. There was a lot of things like that were available that don't do that well just as the flipping on the platform itself, but that could be good for arbitrage purposes onto eBay. So think about that, but don't go wild with it. You kind of have to think about each card. If they do have that event, you have to think about each card and see, is it actually going to get people bidding on it. COMC auctions sometimes don't get as many eyes than some other auctions, in my observation at least. I thought that was more from just back in the day when they had some negative reviews during the whole COVID time, but it still seems like even now the COMC sales, the COMC auctions on eBay tend to go for less than other eBay auctions generally. It just seems to always happen that way. So you have to kind of keep that in mind when you're thinking about the kind of cards that you'd put up for auction. I don't really use the auction anymore, basically at all, except for when this no minimum fee auction event happens. I will use it copiously. Last December, January, I think I made a video and talking about my experiences with that, but I think it was 250 cards or something I auctioned off during that time. Now that I know that it can work well, I'll probably even do more this time around, especially if it's a 2-month thing. I'll probably, as soon as it starts, I'll put all of my older inventory that hasn't been selling well, I'll put it all up, and then once I make money from that, I'll probably start looking around the platform for other cards that I can do the same thing with, and I'll probably spend a decent amount of time during that month or 2 months, however long it is. So hopefully they do that. If COMC you're watching this, please do that event. Out of all the events you have, that's the only event that that really benefits me significantly. A lot of these other like kickoff, NBA tip-off events, these kind of things, they never help me, because it creates, in those events, they create a influx of supply, but it doesn't really increase the demand. So it actually seems to make the cards go for lower prices. The worst auctions I've ever had are when I participate in things like the kickoff event, the NBA tip-off event. Those never do well. And it makes logical sense. It's creating extra supply, an influx of supply, but it's not really doing much to increase the demand. So I've actually lost a lot of money participating in those kind of events. So I don't recommend participating in those ones. The nice thing about this auction event, this no minimum fee auction event, is it's not just like a 1 week period. It's a 1 month or 2 month period. So there's not any one specific time where there's an influx of new supply that's going up for auction. It's kind of spread out and scattered over 2 months. So it doesn't create more supply than the demand can meet. Whereas an NBA tip-off event, an NFL kickoff event, this upcoming World Cup event, it creates an influx of supply for a very short period of time, and it doesn't necessarily do much to the demand. So because it's such a short period of time, so it doesn't help that much. So I think the 2 month thing helps so much more. So if you're watching this COMC, please do that no minimum fee auction event soon. I have this backlog of cards that I'm just like wanting to offload through. That way it's the perfect way to do it. So please do that soon. But this was my advice for you if your COMC sales are slowing down and you're still trying to get rid of some of your cards. I hope it was helpful. Peace.